Hi there, Michael Palladini, aka MacGyver. Thank you all for joining us today in episode 2 of the FieroUTV project. As you see behind me here, I've got the Fiero up in the air on our nice cool Derek Weaver 10K 2-post lift, and we're getting ready to drop the rear engine and cradle assembly out of it. We'll accomplish that at least today, and got my 2x3 box tubing. We're going to try and design up and fabricate our frame, and today we'll go through pulling the motor, and I'm going to take the camera off the tripod here and walk you around and show you what we had to do to get it ready to come out. So okay, now basically what makes this car so cool for what we're doing is the whole engine, transmission, and everything is bolted in at 4 points. You got here and there, and the same thing on the other side, and of course the rest is just hoses and cables and stuff. But to pull one of these engines out, of course you want to, or pull the cradle whole assembly in my case, you want to first disconnect your brake lines. Now I've gone ahead and cut these because this is a Michigan car and it's a rust bucket, and none of this is going to be reused on the UTV, so aside from the brake hose itself. So we'll save that to where we can get it up in the vise and work on it without damaging anything to get that apart. Again, because of all the rust. But cradle's got a lot of surface rust on it, but I think it'll be okay for what we're doing. Essentially, you want to disconnect all your hoses and wiring. Now, the best way to do it is to not disconnect it from the engine itself, but to leave the whole harness together and disconnect it from the ECM inside the car. Now, I'm going to try to get to where I can show you this. Now you pull the console out, and you'll see that hole right there, and that's where the harness comes through and wraps down around the ECM and then plugs into the ECM itself. It's so much easier just to take the console out, unhook that, push it through the firewall, and you're done, basically. Aside from piddly stuff like the battery cable. So now we're going to set the car down a little bit, and I'll show you what we got going on from the top side. I made a little four-wheel dolly thing that's seen use around the shop for the last year or so. Been real handy, and it's going to be handy again because we're going to set that cradle down right on it. So I thought, for the benefit of those who cared, I'll go through and show you all the hoses and everything you need to disconnect. You need to disconnect this hose here, okay, and then down under you can see the tranny fluid dripping on the floor there. There's two short tranny lines and rubber hose clamps. You want to disconnect those, and then there's two hoses back down behind the water pump, a big one and a heater hose. You want to disconnect those two, and then the other heater hose down here, which will come out there, and of course the dog bone, you want to undo that, and you want to undo those two AC lines right over there, and the transmission linkage, shift linkage. This is an automatic, so that was fairly straightforward. And the throttle cable, you want to unhook that. You don't need to undo this cable because it just goes from here to the transmission. They're all coming out together. Now, stick shift car might be a little different, but this car had cruise control, but The cruise control cable was missing, so I didn't have to worry about that. But other than that, at this point, it's ready to drop out of the car. So now what we're going to do is we will set the car down with the cradle on this, and I've already taken the nuts off the 2 front bolts, so I'll slide those 2 bolts out, take those 2 bolts off the bottom, pick the car up, and engine, tranny, and everything will come out in one piece. So I'll set the camera up here, see if I can get my daughter to help me film it, and we'll go from there. Got it held up with the engine crane, and I have my favorite camera person, Vanna White, here bring the camera over, and we're going to drop the engine and cradle assembly down onto our little cart there. There you go. Use that to keep everything in frame. Now, right now I've got everything down here. Slowly.
Fascinating.
A little bit. So we know we got everything pretty much undone. And all we got to do now that we've got everything kind of hanging loose, is take our strut tops out, and we are out of there.
Mind if I give them a close-up?
We'll go right here, honey. So we're down there, show them down inside there where the engine's coming out.
And if you're not an auto mechanic person, you just see a big engine and a nice chain that'll make it pop right open.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yes. Close up of everything. Let me get out of your way. Oh,
Yep.
gosh.
Yeah, it's not hung perfectly down. That's okay. And we'll set it down on this down on
My. Hey, did we get that?
Yep.
Awesome. In theory. If A happens, B will result.
Yeah, it's something like that. We'll give it a quick check and make sure everything is clear.
It's magic, people. Magic.
Make sure we're not tugging on anything.
Peace. Fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, we got the motor out. We had a little problem with that bolt over there. The frame was up in the frame was rusted out right here, and that through bolt,
Yeah.
somebody had, probably the guy I bought it from who put the motor in, it had rusted. So in order to get it out, he cut a hole in the frame, and then
Let's take a closer
got it
look.
out. He cut a hole in the frame And here, I'll hold that for you. I can see. This is the original little square that he cut. I cut around it. I'm not worried about it because we're gonna trash the body shell or the shell because, as you can see, it's pretty well done. And so I had to go in there and get that out to get that last cradle bolt out. And another interesting little thing is, if I'm not mistaken, from my days of working at GM, that this number right here is the final ratio, and that's 410. So that's good because that means it'll be geared real low.
Oh, and we have a Pookie.
Oh, yeah, Pookie, she's always around.
All right, after 3.5 maybe or more, let's see, $500 in the swear jar and one slightly injured man, we finally got the front suspension completely removed and on the table.
Yeah, that's a cool thing. Of course, this car is a bit of a rust bucket, which is why I got it so cheap, but that's okay. I can work with this for what we're going to be using it for. What took us so long is that because it's
give them a close-up.
Because it's a Michigan car, the bolt that goes through this bushing is frozen and rusted into it, and we couldn't get the bolt out, so I had to use the acetylene torch and cut the metal around and keep the bushing cool so it didn't burn up. And because the object here is to do this as inexpensively as possible, so.
Yeah, especially with everything so overpriced nowadays.
Oh, of course, so.
But this is America. We always have to overprice things, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, the reason I'm doing this, and this may seem like a crazy project, but you know, think back in the day, way back in the day.
Your time, the dinosaur years.
No, way even before that. Because,
before the dinosaurs. Wow.
Because, you know, back in the days when you had the Model T, people were taking these Model T cars and making tractors out of them because tractors were too expensive, couldn't afford them. So people would take an old Model T and cut it up and make a tractor out of it so they could farm their land with it. And this is no different. So.
Yep, pretty awesome stuff.